Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie Tolhurst, and welcome to the Charlie Tolhurst Show for today, the 6th of May. As you can tell, in many parts of the country, it has been polling day. Obviously, polling day was yesterday. The 6th of May is a day just after the local elections, but plenty to round up. We're going to start the show off with that, and I'm joined by Labour Party supporter Zach Chambers to round up all the latest news, including the big results from the local elections here in the UK. Hello, Zach.
Hi, Charlie. Hello.
Well, can I say, Zach, a big night for the local elections in terms of who was gaining seats, who was losing seats. Obviously, we've had all the controversy around Partygate with the cost of living crisis. And I have some results in for you guys that I'm just going to read out for you now, which is some local elections results to start the show off with tonight. The West Midlands, I'm going to quickly read up for you now. In Worcester, the Green Party actually, I believe, won that seat, I believe, in that one. The Green Party taking Worcester there as well. I'm sure Zach will update me on what that meant for other parties as well. In other places, Dudley, Nuneaton, Bedworth, Reddick and Tamworth all remain Tory. Tories have held them seats. Labour gains in Sandwell, Coventry, Coventry and Wolverhampton, I believe, kept the majority. And the Greens also gained a seat in Coventry as well. There were some of the updates from the West Midlands there. Zach, what do you make of some of the results to the local elections this year?
Yes, Charlie. You've gone through some of the results there, as you could say. Worcestershire is one of them. Worcestershire is one of the councils, Charlie, that Conservatives lost control of today as the results came in. It's a big loss there as well. They lost seats to the Labour, the Greens, and the Liberal Democrats, which means that Conservatives' control there has gone. That's one of the big seats that the council that switched hands now as well. The party, Conservative Party, now has 20 seats, but Labour gained 3 as well. They knocked out Mike Rouse in Churchill. They knocked out their deputy leader in Batchley and Broxhill ward as well. So a big change there as well. But one of the key interests, Charlie, is obviously, let's go through the raw numbers actually, because I'll share this actually with you, because I think it's really important that I share what's gone on here as well. If you probably can see, we're up here as well. As you see, let's go through some of the results today as well. In terms of council change, the Conservatives, worse than expected, Charlie, 397 seats that they lost. They're forecast to get round about 200, 250 losses at the maximum as well today. Some were saying they were going to lose 800 seats, although I think that was more expectation management, I think, Charlie, in terms of that front. But they're nearly losing 400 seats at the moment. They could lose more tomorrow, depending on what happens in Tower Hamlets and Croydon, where the Conservatives are actually interested in Croydon, considering all the scandals going on there at the moment, and potentially Tower Hamlets as well. But they've lost today 397 seats today. I want to show you some of the areas, Charlie, where Conservatives really did lose today. Let me start off by Westminster, Charlie. This was a key seat that was up to grabs, Charlie, as well today. Westminster has been Conservatives for donkey's years, Charlie. Today, that council went to Labour-controlled for the first time. I mean, that's stunning as well. The same as well for Wandsworth, Charlie. This is when the Conservatives in London have been losing as well. Again, look at where the Conservatives started today. Look how they ended. 35 seats to Labour in Wandsworth as well. That's been one of what you would say, Charlie, is a historical area for Conservatives, because that's been controlled throughout the time by likes of, since Margaret Thatcher was in charge in the 1970s.
Yeah.
And when scandals happened, you mean like through Thatcher, Major,
Cameron,
yeah. William Hague, Michael Howard, David Cameron, Theresa May. That's always been a Conservative-controlled council, Charlie. Wandsworth went Labour-controlled last night. It's a massive loss as well. Also, another one that Conservatives lost, Barnet as well. This is an area where Labour will be really happy, Charlie, because this area was a heavily Jewish populated area. And as you know, Barnet has been sort of an area where Labour couldn't really gain control because of the Jewish population and their hatred towards Jeremy Corbyn. But in this year's elections, Charlie, they have gained control of Barnet. They easily took control as well. There was the starting there, Charlie. Look, there was the starting line there. It went to 41 to 22. Look at the amount of Conservative losses there as well. Massive control for Barnet to Labour. Another one as well, Charlie, that was interesting. Southampton went from Conservative to Labour as well, Charlie. Southampton's been Conservative control for 20, 30 years. Today, it's gone Conservative control as well, 26 to 21. Lib Dems on one seat as well there. Another one. This has just been in the space of 5 years, Charlie, as well. Labour, this has been no rule control 5 years ago since this council, right? Okay. Today, it is now 5 years later. It's now under Labour control. It went from no rule control. Tories were losing ground there. Today, it went Labour controlled.
Yeah.
And in Kirklees, massive game as well. Followed by some big
half
Tory
the vote Labour won as well by looks of that.
Yeah, Kirklees as well. That went from no rule control to Labour control as well. That's a big interest there as well. Let's go through some of the others, Charlie, as well, where some things have actually changed as well. Kingston upon Hull is an interesting one because Labour actually lost this council, Charlie. This has gone to the Liberal Democrats. Interesting enough, it's gone from here to, you can see, just a slight seat change to about 2 seats, Charlie. And that's changed from Labour to Lib Dem as well. Another area, Charlie, to watch out. Lib Dems have been very successful in the south of England today, Charlie. That has gone from Conservative to Lib Dem control. As you can see, Charlie, this is some of the areas where the Conservatives are really suffering, Charlie. The more southern areas that are more middle class, more sort of traditional, what you say, Conservative voters have moved to the Liberal Democrats, and that you can see that in Gospel, their Conservatives Lib Dem a lot of control there as well. St Albans as well. They have took all the Labour seats. They've took the majority of the Conservative seats, and they've
and
gone
the Liberal Democrats have won that
to 50 seats, Charlie, in St Albans. That is extraordinary as well, Charlie. Another trend as well, West Oxfordshire. Well, that was Conservative control. That's gone to no overall control, Charlie. As well, it's gone to the stage that
that's probably a Green Party seat or UKIP.
Yeah, that's gone from Lib Dems making major gains as well. West Oxfordshire again, the same demographics that Conservatives cannot be losing in the blue wall. Wokingham as well, Charlie. Let's go for here as well. This has also been Conservative controlled. It's gone back to it's now no overall control. The Lib Dems and Labour. Now, next time this council's up for election, Charlie, all the Lib Dems will need is 4 seats to take control of Wokingham Council. That will be a big target at the next election, I think. Next local, when we're up for election as well there, Charlie. I think that will be for Liberal Democrats. Another one as well, Maidstone, a loss as well. Conservative to over control. A slight loss there, Charlie, has resulted in Maidstone going from Conservative to over control as well.
Now, in Scotland to announce.
Yeah, Monmouthshire as well. That's a big one as well. That's gone from Conservative to overall control as well. Big one here as well. Labour making big gains here as well. That's an area they need to be making gains as well. Another one as well, Conservative in Bromley. But look at the Labour and Lib Dem gains, Charlie. That could, in the next 10 or so years, go potentially Labour, depending on what happens there. And one in Scotland as well, Charlie, where the SNP and the Labour have been making very good progress there. It's been an SNP gain for Dundee for no overall control as well. Let me look at, and in terms of what's happened overall in the demographic, Charlie, today as well, let's look at where all the seats, the major seats have been gained today. As you can see, Charlie, Conservatives have been doing slightly better in these areas in the north, where the demographics change slightly as well. This is normally the Red Bull area, where their demographics have been going in their direction, Charlie. Keep in mind that these results have been compared to 2018. So the losses for the Conservatives are not as bad, and the gains are slightly better. So you can see here they've been gaining areas such as Highburn, Salford, Tameside, as well. Hartlepool, they've gained ground. They gained less ground than I expected, Charlie. Amber Valley, well, they've took some seats from Labour there. Newton and Bedwith as well. They've gained as well. And I think one area as well, Charlie, I can't remember where, they gained Enfield in London. This is an area that's been trending their way for a little bit as well, Charlie, as well. But look at the Labour sort of gains as well. Look at the gains in Scotland. This is the sort of thing they need to get, Charlie. They nearly took control of Glasgow Council today, Charlie. That's how close they were as well. There's been a total collapse in the Tory vote here in Scotland as well. There's been total collapse there as well. Labour gaining in these key areas as well. But look at the Liberal Democrat, Charlie. This is an interesting one. Look at the Liberal Democrat gaining all the southern England as well. Richmond they gained as well. That's been trending there in their area as well. Massive there. Woking as well is a big one they've changed. Wokingham as well is a big one as well. Tunbridge well they've been making gains in. Portsmouth, Eastleigh, one in Southampton Wells where Labour's gained control. And this one in Somerset, Charlie, where they took control of Somerset Council. Massive gains there. 14 seats they gained as well, Charlie, in the southwest. It's a huge result as well. There's some of the Green results. They've had a good election as well, Charlie. So St Helens as well. They've had a good result in as well. Hastings have a good result in. They took their 3 gains actually resulted from Labour losing to no overall control there. As well, Charlie. So, yeah, big results there as well in England as well. But, yeah, massive results there. I think it's been a bad night for the Conservatives. It's been a better night for Labour. Some of the key areas in there, they're slowly getting there. But a lot more progress, I think, is needed. And I think it's been a good day for Liberal Democrats. Absolute as well. Some of that Somerset, St Albans, massive areas where they should be winning, Charlie. They've absolutely stomped it out the park there as well. Big gains as well, Charlie. Now, I want to go to Northern Ireland, Charlie, because this is the area I've been most wanting to watch.
The Assembly elections,
I tell you something, Charlie. I will tell you something. It has not disappointed. It looks like, Charlie, that Sinn Féin are going to be the largest party in the Northern Ireland Assembly for the first time ever. DUP have been the largest party in the many years that the Northern Ireland Executive have been set up, Charlie. But that looks like it's about to change tomorrow, potentially, when all the results. And look at this. This is the situation at the moment. There's been 30 out of the 90 seats being declared, Charlie, because they use a different voting system. But as you can see, Charlie, they have won 16 of the seats so far. The DUP have won 5 at the moment. They've undecided 60. There will be lots of recounting tomorrow.
Yeah.
As well, Charlie. But 16 seats as well, Charlie. And the vote share as well. If I can find the vote share somewhere, because this was vote share was significant. I can't see it anywhere. But the Sinn Féin came out with a 7-point lead in the first preference vote share, which is the highest beats the DUP astoundingly. And at this rate, Charlie, they are going to be the largest party in Northern Ireland. If we look at the last election, the DUP won 28 seats, Sinn Féin on 27, the SDLP was on 12, the Ulster Unionist was in 10, the Alliance was on 8. This is going to be dramatically shifted. I expect one of the ones that I think I'm going to watch out for is the Alliance Party, Charlie. They've made considerable gains in their vote share, Charlie, no doubt about it. But Sinn Féin looks like they're going to be the largest party, Charlie, at the end of this. And it looks like Michelle O'Neill, the Sinn Féin's deputy leader, is going to become the first minister of Northern Ireland and overturning DUP rule. Now, keep in mind, in Northern Ireland, they have to have a power sharing agreement between the Unionist Party, a Nationalist Party, and a Unionist Party as well. So DUP could make it difficult to set up an assembly if possible. But nevertheless, Charlie, tonight there's been a historic change, certainly, with Sinn Féin on its way to beat the 27 and take lead Stormont for the next 4 years, Charlie. It's extraordinary.
It is, Zach. I have to say as well, with the other elections, obviously, I'm going to go over some results whilst we're here from Essex, particularly the local ones around where I live. So I'm just going to get that up for you right now, actually. As you can see here, the Essex election results, Tories hold all councils but lose leader. So this is interesting. So the Conservatives have retained control of 6 councils in their Essex stronghold after Thursday's local elections. But the party lost control of the Castle Point Borough Council, which it has led for almost 20 years. Basildon, Brentwood, Harlow, Rochford, Epping, Forest and Thurrock all saw Tory successes, although they lost some seats. Colchester and Southend councils have stayed under no overall control. In Colchester, Conservative councillor leader Paul Dundas lost his seat to the Liberal Democrats. In total, the Tories there lost 1 seat to the Greens and 3 to the Lib Dems. Before the election, the Conservatives relied on an alliance with the Highwoods Group to form a ruling administration. That was the moment there today when the Paul Dundas, Tory leader of Colchester Council, loses his seat to the Liberal Democrats by 395 votes. He said today that it was a very marginal seat, so I'm not terribly surprised. So that sums up a pretty mixed election for the Conservative Party here in Essex. Well, I can tell you for one thing, with the council of Castle Point, a big loss there for them, obviously. But I think there is some coalition with the Greens that's going to take place on that one I read up. But yeah, all we can say is for Conservatives in Essex still holding on to the councils at the time being as well, including in Basildon. It seems like David Daggs will be the mayor of Basildon again for another year, at least, should I say, when the next elections come up. So please visit all of the various articles we mentioned for the latest results on the local elections, and we'll also keep you updated with the results from the Northern Ireland Assembly in due course as well. Now, moving on now to the main news. Obviously, this podcast is aired at a weekend, but because of the Miami Grand Prix this weekend with late starting times, we're moving it to tonight. More on Miami later on this evening, later on in the show. I'm going to start with the main point in Russia. Now, not in Ukraine, sorry. And Russia as well, because there has been an airstrike in part of Russia I'll come on to in a minute. Now, in Ukraine, the Avastovol steel plant in Mariupol has been holding many civilians and some Ukrainian troops, the last remaining ones, literally in an underground bunker for 2 months now. And some civilians did escape. However, though, just yesterday, Putin's forces decided it's time to destroy it, and they launched various bombing raids and attacked this huge structure in Mariupol and tried to raze it to the ground. Zach, what did you make of Putin's army using this pretty scarce tactic?
Yeah, they didn't seem to use it at first, Charlie. I think from what Putin's plan was that he was going to basically let the people in there suffer, basically. At plan without any forced intervention, just let them suffer, surround the plant basically as well, and just basically so nobody could get out. But now the tax has now changed to the point where the Russians do want to basically destroy it with missiles. Very interestingly as well, Charlie, as well. So yeah, Matt, it's incredible. There's some brave people in there, Charlie. They've probably gone hungry, haven't heard communications for days, who have just survived this hell, Charlie, of being cascaded and trapped inside the plant, where Mariupol is literally on its last legs. And it's been on its last leg for a few weeks now, Charlie, no doubt about it. But it's incredible the strength and resilience of the people down there who, are really holding on, Charlie. They really are holding on, with an incredible amount of strength and resistance and agility. But it's coming sort of at the expense of missiles being attacked at them, Charlie. It's not a good time at the moment, I have to say, Charlie, to be in there at the moment. And the Russians are doing everything they can to take over that plant, even though they haven't been able to do it quite successfully so far. But yeah, this is the latest hell. There was, I believe, trying to be some sort of evacuation human corridor process there a few days ago, and it did work for a time, but it's become a little bit unsuccessful, Charlie. But yeah, it's starting again. It's starting to that the Russians are starting to be in hell again as well. Now, one thing to look out for this week, Charlie, and I have to say as well, is that on Monday, I think it's Monday, it might be Sunday or Monday, that it's going to be Russians' Victory Day as well.
Monday.
And there may well be that what the US is saying, and potentially the Brits, British intelligence is saying, that Putin may finally declare all out war on Russia informally. I mean, it's basically, he's been at war with them all the last bloody 2 months, Charlie. So it's going to be sort of words to our ears. I mean, yeah, finally he's told the truth. It's a war, but he's sort of going to formally declare that on Monday as well, potentially what US and UK intelligence is saying on Ukraine. So, yeah, I don't think we've seen the last of this yet, Charlie. No doubt about it.
I have to say, Zach, this is just completely ridiculous. Can I say to the paranoid psychopaths at the Russian state media for basically using this crazy propaganda they have, all the propaganda power they have for, say, broadcasting, in my view, fake news of the invasion. They're basically then trying to terrify their population by saying the United Kingdom is, well, a country that's helping to arm Ukraine. We're just going to destroy it and turn it into a little fragment. One of the reporters on Russian state television saying that. I mean, it's clear to me that if you live in Russia right now, you're going to hate the press over there. It's so negative. They threaten you. They're threatening to basically destroy other countries. It's called a dictatorship. Now, I have to say today, guys, I am going to say this personal experience. I am working at IKEA in Thurrock as part of my course with my college. I actually saw someone today who was from Ukraine. I had a chat with him very briefly, and I spoke to him about the war in Ukraine. I'm not going to name the individual, but it was a Ukrainian civilian who had been in Britain for a few years. He'd immigrated over here, and he said that it's horrible what his country's going through. That he's having to call his parent. He's trying to call he's got grandparents over there who are suffering. That have actually stayed behind. Some of them have been in bunkers without major internet, food. And honestly, I felt pretty shocked by that, and I felt like this boy's got very close family to him, and I must admit, I bet those people right now are feeling the guilt of what they're going through right now. And Zach, would you agree that for families, members in Ukraine, the guilt they must be feeling is huge?
Yeah, I bet it. I'm very sorry to hear that, Charlie, because that's very sad to hear. And no one looks very rhyme for that person. As well, it's having to ring up the parents all day to check if they're okay and to check if they're even alive, Charlie. It's hard as well. And it's sort of ringing up your parents, Charlie, is the sort of thing you do, say, every week, every now and so often. To the point is they have to do it every day just to check whether their relatives are alive or not. It's just unbelievable, Charlie. And I'm glad you got to speak with that person, because you get a sense of understanding of what that person's going through and what he's having to check up on every day. It's incredibly depressing and distressing as well. I'd say as well, Charlie, as well. But yeah, it's still a hellhole there, Charlie, for those who are trying. It's just a hellhole for those who are trying to live and survive out there, and for their relatives to worry about what is going on.
And I have to say as well, obviously, to all the listeners watching live on YouTube and to the individual I mentioned, who, if they're planning watching the show tonight live, or Child Tale show on YouTube, I honestly got moved by it. it's a very emotional, it's a very powerful message to send into the world, and they're sending clear messages to the Russian president.
Yeah.
This is unacceptable. It's an unacceptable, barbaric invasion. And he's a blood-stained aggressor, is Putin. To do something like this, and I obviously got first-hand day of speaking to someone who has family out there, someone who is from a country that's going through a torrid time at the moment. We've got to support Ukraine. Ukraine's a lovely country, and it's sovereign. It's an independent country.
Yeah.
Yet for them to be attacked by Russia in this way, nearly over 2 months in now, nearly 3 months in this month. Wow. It's quite moving, and it's certainly why I support the Ukrainian people for speaking out. Now, whilst I'm here, I'm going to quickly play for you this short clip from Channel 4 News as Vladimir Putin called on Ukrainian soldiers to surrender as the Mariupol Avastfol steel plant continues to receive heavy bombardment, as Putin calls for Ukrainian soldiers to get out of there and give up, as he wants to take control of the city. Have a listen to this.
After 3 months of fighting in Mariupol, it all comes down to this: the charred tangle of the Azovstal steel plant, the last remnants of Ukrainian resistance. Footage released today by the Russian-backed separatists in Donetsk showed their relentless bombing of the plant.
Тривають важкі кровопролитні бої. Оборонці міста вже 71 день б'ються сам на сам з переважаючими силами противника.
Ukraine said the Russians were storming the plant and their soldiers had for the first time entered the perimeter. As ever in this war of weapons and words, Moscow denied all of that, with Vladimir Putin today ordering the remaining soldiers to surrender. Somehow, life still emerges from underneath. Yesterday, 344 citizens were evacuated from the city, with President Zelensky saying they had all safely arrived overnight in Zaporizhia. A 3-day ceasefire to allow more to leave was meant to begin today, with both sides accusing the other of not keeping their promises. But just fleeing isn't safety, because other cities aren't far off becoming the next Mariupol. Just ask Ludmila in Kramatorsk, in another part of Ukrainian-held Donbass. At least 25 civilians were wounded after shelling in this city. They sweep away the shrapnel, but the scars and the shock remains.
I couldn't sleep and I went to the bathroom. My husband opened the window slightly. Then the roof started crumbling. We probably got lucky. We could have been hit by the blast.
Kyiv today said it crucially needed multiple launch rocket systems to defend against these types of Russian missile attacks. As the Ukrainians await more Western equipment, the Russians have been targeting the country's infrastructure to stop or slow down any such deliveries. And despite persistent attacks, the Russians are stuck on the Eastern Front, making no major headway in recent days. Even Putin's cheerleader-in-chief in this so-called special operation, Belarus's Alexander Lukashenko, admitted this wasn't following the Kremlin's script.
To be honest with you, I don't think this operation would have dragged on this way. But I am not immersed into this problem enough to say whether it's going according to plan. Like the Russians say, or I feel it. I want to stress one more time, I feel like this operation has dragged on.
Preparations for Moscow's big Victory Day parade next week, when Russia marks the end of World War II, or what they call the Great Patriotic War. Vladimir Putin will hope to shift the narrative to Russia's minds. Today they said they had practiced simulated nuclear-capable missile strikes in the Baltic Sea. For Monday's parade, they've been practicing both day and night in Red Square. All these soldiers' gazes are fixed to the west, not just towards the Kremlin walls where inside Putin plots, but to Ukraine's front line, because Putin needs something to show off to his public come Victory Day. And the question is, what does victory look like?
Well, thank you there to the Channel 4 for reporting that story. It's clear to me that a lot of that is very interesting. So we've got some news there on the war. We're going to get you up the latest feed that we're going to be getting. This is from The Guardian today. And here is some of the updates we've got from the war today and the day 72 of the invasion, would you believe it? Now, this at the top here is a pro-Russian force fire from a tank during fighting near the Azovstal steel plant that got attacked the other day. But also in more news, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has described the war zone in Mariupol as appearing to be hellscapes, according to that as well. And the Ukrainian commander also said there was heavy, bloody fighting as well. And the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, demanded that Ukraine order its fighters to hold up in the Azovstal steel plant and surrender. Zach, what do you make of some of this news?
Yeah, clearly, this has obviously been a bit all overlooked because of the elections, Charlie, today as well. But it appears that Ukraine are being able to do some counter attacks from what I'm reading as well, Charlie, as well. Although they are not unlikely to, according to what Zelensky is saying, they are unlikely to launch a counter-offensive before mid-June. So it may be a little bit while away, but it appears they're in preparation for one. So that could be good news in that chance. As well. There was obviously talking about the Azovstal as well. The fighters there have struggled, and they've Putin has all of their surrenders there as well. In there as well, Asterona has been heavy fighting in there as well, Charlie. Russia that has promised a ceasefire, it's not delivering on that ceasefire, unfortunately, Charlie. As well, there's been more from what the Antonio Guterres, the UN General Secretary, has been saying. He called it hellscapes, as well in Mariupol as well. One thing that's been positive from the Ukrainian perspective, they've managed to share the intelligence about certain locations, about missiles that could be targeted, Charlie, as well. And there's some intelligence that helped them to kill Russian generals as well. That is one area. Some areas, Charlie, where where Ukraine had success, Charlie, as well. So it's been the US has been some help as well, and I believe they're going to announce another £100 million in aid as well in the next few days as well. 2 packages from what I read as well, and it looks like it's going to be more sanctions as well on Russia, Vladimir Putin's girlfriend potentially. And the Russian Orthodox Church as well. So, yeah, there's still a lot of activity going on, Charlie, there as well. Now, one thing I have to say as well, Charlie, the Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, came up with some rather revolting anti-Semitic trash the other day when he sort of claimed that Hitler had Jewish blood as well.
Oh, God.
I don't understand where the hell that even came from, Charlie. If he had Jewish blood, he wouldn't be killing Jews, quite frankly. So it was a very insulting remark, which meant that Vladimir Putin had to apologize to Naftali Bennett, the Israeli Prime Minister. Quite extraordinary, Charlie, that had to be the case, but embarrassing indeed for Sergei Lavrov to get such a smackdown from his own president. Really, in fairness, Charlie. So, yeah, it again not been a good week for Russia.
No, watch this space for Sergei Lavrov coming later on in the show, because I have some surprises. But yes, in terms of Ukraine's attack on Russia, well, there's been another strike. I think it was in Belgorod. Russia having, I think, another oil depot got attacked the other day. So Ukraine are also counter-striking Russian targets just over the border. It's clear to me that the Ukrainians are showing brave resilience and continue fighting whatever is being brought to them. Now, moving on to the sport briefing. We're going to start with Formula E this week because we had the Monaco Grand Prix. Thankfully, I watched the Monaco Grand Prix. Plenty of action in the race. And, well, can I say it was a race that was a close one. However, though, interestingly enough, if your name is, well, Pascal Wehrlein, you would have been unlucky in that respect, as you broke down leading the race, and in the end, the race was handed in the dying stages.
Yeah. Pretty unlucky there. I think we covered this last week, Charlie. But we'll go over it again. I mean, yeah, it was pretty unlucky for Pascal Wehrlein. Nevertheless, Charlie, it was a horrible, it was an unlucky race for him as well. It was Stoffel Van Dorn winning that race as well, Charlie, and winning the results as well. It was a very close battle, Charlie, towards the end. I'll give you an example. He was 1.2 seconds ahead of Mitch Evans towards the end, who started on pole, but just got beaten by Stoffel Van Dorn, who did a masterful drive as well. And I thought one of the best results was Antonio Felix da Costa and Robin Freintz as well. Good job from fourth. Felix Costa 10th to 5th. Sixth, Lucas de Grassi lost the place. And I gave him my driver of the day for him. It's Nick Cassidy, Sebastian Buemi, because Buemi was 22nd. He came to finish 8th. And Nick Cassidy was 18th and finished 7th, Charlie. So outstanding drives by them as well, Charlie. It was a great result for them as well. Another one, Jake Dennis, 15th to 9th as well. Nick de Vries lost some position as well in 10th place. Now, if we're going to be on the subject of Formula E, Charlie, I want to talk about actually the Gen 3 car that was revealed, Charlie, in the last couple of days as well. If whilst on the subject of Formula E, they unveiled a new generational 3 car as well, which I believe they're going to be racing very soon. Now, here it is as well. This is the Gen 3 car, Charlie, they're going to be racing as well. It will debut in season 9, which I think it's next season.
Next year, yeah.
Next season. But here it is. It kind of reminds me of the season, the Gen 1 car, but with a few changes. It feels like the best of Gen 1 and Gen 2 mixed together. It does. And it feels like that. But it's like the most, I don't know, Charlie. It's a unique looking car. It looks like a kite in some ways. It does. It looks like a kite in certain sections, especially the rear, Charlie. It doesn't have a rear wing, which is very interesting. It's got a massive front wing, but it doesn't have much of a rear wing, Charlie. It looks like a sewage rear wing I've ever seen as well. So, yeah, it's a very unique looking car as well, Charlie. It's the fastest one yet. It can do up to 200 miles an hour. It's the most efficient one yet. It's now 95% power efficient for a 300 kilowatt motor. It contains both front and rear powertrains. Very interesting, Charlie, on that perspective as well. And it's got 600 kilowatts ultra high speed charging capacity. And it will not feature 3 hydraulic brakes as well. So there's some innovative additions there, both rear and front power chains as well. So it's got a total of 600 kilowatts as well. So this will be the most powerful, it'll be more efficient, Charlie, and it'll be the most fastest as well. Formula E car that's debuting next season.
Yeah, 450 horsepower as well. If you're a motoring fan like myself, good. 450 brake horsepower is the actual figure that they're given. But yeah, big announcement. I saw that and I thought, wow, this looks amazing. Fastest Formula E car yet. Probably going to have very little downforce, trust me. Let's hope they do on street circuits. But yes, now that was the Formula E news. IndyCar, actually, I think did race last week. I was watching some of the highlight. I did actually see some of the race. Yes, it was Barber Motorsports Park that was the venue, and for Pato O'Ward, a win for him at last.
Yes, Charlie. Pato O'Ward managed to get a victory, his first victory of the season in the Arrow McLaren, Charlie. He beat Alex Palou, the current Series IndyCar champion, by 1 second, Charlie. Just picked him at the line. It was a close call at the end, Charlie, as well. Very, very close. No doubt about it, Charlie. It was extremely close as well in that perspective, Charlie, because it's very close. Yeah, I'll give you an example as well, Charlie. Look at that. I mean, if you look at the results here as well, look, that was very close. It was a
10th for second, wow.
Renus VK was third, Will Power was fourth. Started for 19th to 4th, a good race for him actually, Will Power. So was Scott Dixon as well. Grosjean finished Scott Dixon 5th, Scott McLaughlin 6th, Grosjean 7th. Graham Rahal was 8th. 9th was Alexander Rossi, Colton Hurd 10th. Simon Pagenaud, another one that gained 11th to as well, starting from 24th. Marcus Ericsson started where he's finished. Takuma Sato 13th to 17th. Newgarden, a poor race, 7th to 14th. Lundgaard as well, 5th, 14th to 15th. Felix Rosenqvist as well, struggling as well. All cars finished, by the way, I should point out, Charlie. All cars finished as well in that one. Callum Island 11th to 25th. Jimmy Johnson 24th. Elton Kellett 23rd. Carl Cutler 22nd. Castaner 21st. David Malikis 20th. Daly Conor 19th. Jack Harvey 18th. Devin DeFrancisco 17th. Philip Rosencrantz as well 16th. So yeah, that's the results there as well.
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, I think Romain Grosjean got a bit in the wars with someone during the race. I read up that I don't know who it was, but someone got on the radio saying that he was a bit aggressive and all that kind of stuff. I'll have to watch the highlights back properly. But yes, Pato Award winning. Big disappointment, Joseph Newgarden, looking at the standings there, having an awful race. I have to say another one that done quite badly was, I know I didn't see any of the action, Callum Ilott. I think he got fastest in practice or something. And yeah, the Meyershank Junkos Hollinger racing car didn't seem to have any pace during the race, down in 25th as well. Now, the next IndyCar race, well, we're going to have the IndyCar schedule up for you right now, is going to be, we're going to Indy, GMR Grand Prix of Indy on the road course, 14th of May. Then on the 29th, the 106th running of the Indianapolis 500. Huge race at the end of the month. Helio Castroneves, I think, be the only driver, if he can win it, I think 4 or 5 times. It'll be very interesting if he can do it. That is IndyCar for you as well. NASCAR as well, taking place last week. Now, NASCAR, the Cup Series was racing. Whilst we were on there, I think the Cup Series had not started, obviously. That was at Dover. Oh, and I did watch the highlights of that one, actually, believe it or not. Chase Elliott taking his first win of the season. And it was quite a chaotic race, if you ask me, Zach.
Do you know what, Charlie? I'll tell you this, right, okay. I predicted something. I said when I was talking about this last week, watch out for Hendrick Motorsport cars in this and Chase Elliott, because he wasn't, even though he didn't start on pole, this has been historically a Hendrick circuit. And Chase Elliott winning, well, wasn't I right, Charlie? Wasn't I right? Just finished ahead of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in second as well. Ross Chastain, who I believe started on the pole, Charlie, was third. Christopher Bell was fourth. Alex Bowman was fifth. Carl Larson was sixth. As that Kyle Busch in seventh. As well, Charlie. As well, if we go back to the results. Chris Busch at eighth. Kevin Harvick ninth. Elliott Jones in 10th. Justin Haley 11th. Martin Truex Jr. 12th. Chase Briscoe 13th. As well, Charlie. So, yeah, that has been a pretty good, interesting set of results there in Dover this week. Dover last weekend. The Cup Series race is tonight at 12:30 a.m. in the morning, by the way, in case you're wondering as well. We've not had qualifying yet for Cup Series, which is this weekend as well, Darlington. All the races, that's at 8:30 UK time. The Xfinity race is kicking off at 6:30 UK time on Saturday as well. There's been no qualifying yet. Obviously, we're doing this a day earlier than what we normally do as well. But actually, for the Truck Series race, I think they've had qualifying. Let me just double check how they have had the qualifying. It's Joe Nemechek on pole ahead of Ty Majeski and Grant Enfinger is third. Zane Smith is fourth as well. And Corey Heim is in fifth position as well, Charlie. So, yeah, as well. And then 6th position is Carson Hoekuser. 7th for Matt Crafton, 8th for Matt DiBerbeno, 9th for Parker Luckerson, and 10th is Ross Chastain. So that would be the grid for the Truck Series race. That is starting tonight at 12:30 in the morning UK time. It's night race in America.
Yeah. I'm just going to quickly go over some results whilst we're here from, I think the Xfinity race. We had Josh Berry won that one. In second was Justin Allgaier, and in third was Ty Gibbs. So is that what, before we move on, what did you make to the Xfinity race?
It was a good race again, Charlie, as well. I think it was a pretty interesting race as well from that perspective as well. I mean, Josh Berry getting a good result, winning the race as well ahead of Justin Allgaier and Ty Gibbs as well. It was pretty much a straightforward, typical race, I think, Dover Xfinity race as well. Josh Berry winning as well and getting the 55 poles was needed as well ahead of Ty Gibbs, Noah Griffin and Sam Mayer as well. So, yeah, it was a pretty decent race overall.
Yeah. Now, moving on to the main headliner event of the weekend, which is the Formula One Miami Grand Prix. We're heading to Florida, baby, as we always know. Now, yesterday we had a huge launch party in Miami, which also saw driver interviews. It saw WTF1's Max Gallagher take on Charles Leclerc on a simulator for the new upcoming 2022 F1 game. More on that in a bit. But yeah, Zach, what do you make of the run-in so far in Miami for the Miami Grand Prix?
Yes, we just had first practice, by the way, Charlie, as well. And let me go through the results here. Let's give you an early indication. Leclerc was fastest. George Russell in second position at the moment in practice, Charlie. Now, that's a big, certainly a big area to look out for, I think, Charlie, that George Russell was second. Now, obviously, this is only first practice, nevertheless, Charlie, as well. But nevertheless, it's the Mercedes has bought front and rear wing upgrades this weekend. Is it working potentially already? We don't know. Max Verstappen third, Sergio Perez fourth, Pierre Gasly in fifth. Carlos Sainz stuck in sixth after a spin and a flat spot in the right front. Charlie led to a puncture as well in the spin. Alex Albon seventh, Lewis Hamilton eighth. I don't think this is actual indicative of the running so far. Charlie, Kevin Magnussen 10th and 11th for McLaren, Ricardo Norris. Ricardo Norris, by the way, have been caught filming this weekend with James Corden out of Late Show fame as well. Watch out for that in a few days' time, I have to say, Charlie, because that would be a bit fun to watch. They did come into the paddock on Thursday, Charlie, with a very interesting uniform. A bit girlish, if you should say, a bit of a girls' boys uniform. Probably being dared to by old Corden, but it was a bit of a weird style uniform, the one there as well. Now, I want to show you as well, and if I can, I'll get this up somewhere else actually. But I will show you the Miami circuit because this is the first time, Charlie, that F1 has actually been to this circuit in Miami, and this is it's an interesting circuit, nevertheless, Charlie. If I get it up here as well, here we go. So this is a circuit,
Here is a
Charlie.
track back from Miami.
Yeah, this is it's a 5.4 mile kilometer circuit, 57 laps, Charlie. As well, there's going to be 3 DRS zones, Charlie, as well. So if we go through the DRS, there's one on the front stretch here between turn 19 and turn 1. In sector 2, there's a long DRS between just after turn 9, just before turn 11. And then there's a third DRS zone between the middle of this of the backstretch in sector 3 and just ended before turn 17. Now, I'm fascinated between turns 11 to 16, Charlie. And what I've saw of the circuit so far, Charlie, is that it's very narrow, but it's also very uphill as well. So it's interesting. You've got to have a lot of car control and a lot of momentum if you want a good lap, Charlie, and get pole position. It's certainly very much an interest to me because it's slow, it's tricky, it's tight. It reminds me a bit of Azerbaijan, really, and Baku, really, to be fair, Charlie, with some of the corners as well. But it feels like there's a lot of mix and match in this circuit, Charlie. There's a bit of lots of long straights, a bit of tight corners as well, Charlie, a bit of slow speed sections. So the setup's going to be very interesting, Charlie, and to decide where you're going to gain most of the laps is going to be very interesting, Charlie. Know less about it as well. Another thing I've seen, Charlie, as well, is turn 18 and the pit lane entry as well. It looks very tight as well, Charlie. And we've seen the likes of Mick Schumacher and I think Lance Stroll get black and white flags because they went over the pit line during free practice 1. So I think it's going to be very interesting to watch, Charlie, how they're going to deal with that during the race when they cannot afford to do that or they get penalties. So, yeah, it's an interesting circuit nevertheless, Charlie. I think it's got a good mix and match, and it's very interesting nevertheless, Charlie.
I have to say, Zach, after seeing the action, it looks cool. And I have to say, 3 DRS zones, 57 laps of action. Well, it's going to be one of them. And I have to say, you've got to think that this is the inaugural Miami Grand Prix. It's the first ever one they've done. Obviously, the last time they sort of raced in America this time was at Caesar's Palace in the 1980s on a race days in Las Vegas. So it's a very prestigious race, this one. It's a huge event. It's been highly hyped by media, by Formula One themselves. Mercedes looking quick. Well, George Russell, certainly. He's clearly been quicker than Lewis Hamilton in the last few races. Hamilton's struggling. There's also been a debate whether drivers should wear jewellery in the car. I am very much interested to see how that debate will come through. Now, Zach, just before we move on to my good news segment, what do you think is going to happen this weekend in Miami? What would be the biggest talking points going forward from Imola that you think the teams are going to have to focus on?
I think as well, Charlie, the biggest talking points is how far can Mercedes get up? I think as well, potentially, Charlie, as well with these upgrades, got new front wing upgrades, got rear wing upgrades as well. How much are they going to work? How much performance have they gained from this upgrade, if anything, Charlie? As well, how much performance have they gained? And if the results represent what George Russell is as well in practice 1, that is a good result. That's going to be really critical. But nevertheless, Charlie, is that whether Verstappen can get back into it, whether Leclerc can avoid making a critical error around the circuit, Charlie, because I think we're going to see some errors, definitely. 11 to 16, I think it's going to be a problem for these drivers. But I think as well, can Max gain momentum on the victory in Imola, or is Mercedes going to pull a shot? And can Sainz finally have a good run, Charlie, and not fall behind his teammate, and not have any issues this weekend?
Yeah, and can Sainz not have a crash as well, like last time? Daniel Ricciardo, unfortunately, there was nowhere for him to go and got into Sainz and ended up ending Sainz's afternoon at Imola in the gravel again. 2 races in a row, Sainz retires his Ferrari in a gravel trap. Oh, no. Right, now it's time for Charlie's good news. Now, it's a motorsport theme this week for my good news segment. Staying with Formula One, because we have confirmation of when this new F1 2022 game is going to be released. And it's the 1st of July, guys. On the 1st of July, Formula One fans alike, including hopefully myself, will be given access to the 2022 game. Now, this game, obviously, it is going to be a huge game for the sport, for Xbox in general. It is going to be available on the Xbox One console. But yes, this game is going to be a huge addition to many people. Obviously, you might have it on PS4, you might have it on Xbox One. But this here is a big announcement that Formula One are making regarding this. So the next installment of the race we'll see obviously available on 1st of July. Now, it's developed by Codemasters and it'll be published by EA F1 22. The latest entry will be based on the current generations of the Formula One World Championship. So what is everything you need to know about the game in question? Well, it's going to come to a lot of change last year. So for Formula One Live, following today's announcement as well, all eyes are on the brand new game. Codemasters have released, annual releases are getting better and better. The game itself is going to feature, of course, the new cars. It's also going to feature F1 Live, where customizable hub, where people can show off the customization of supercars, clothing, accessories, and earned gameplay. Crossplay will also be a reported feature in the 2022 F1 game, allowing players to race online across PC, PlayStation, and Xbox simultaneously. That means at the same time. Today's announcement hasn't revealed much concerning crossplay, so we'll keep you updated. This is the first title released entirely under EA, so fans are excited to see exactly how it's going to happen. In terms of early access as well, usually comes with a limited edition that includes 3 days of early access as well. There's also a trailer out which you can watch on YouTube, which actually has all of the latest news. We can actually see the trailer here, guys. This might buffer, I don't know. But the trailer in general will feature all of the latest developments from Formula One. It also includes information concerning F1 Live. Also, the inclusion of that Miami Autodrome circuit, as we mentioned, hence why Charles Leclerc and Matt Gallagher from WTF1 and Ferrari were taking part in this sort of experiment. The game's still in progress. And also, for the first time as well, we're also going to see the addition of sprint races to the game as well. Unfortunately, YouTube is taking a while, so we will not play the video. There'll also be the new game and also plenty of new generation cars. Also, my team will launch this year with some awesome new features, including adaptive budgets. There'll be newcomer challenges and front runners help the game to make more accessible, and how you can choose that set as well. Now, Zach, what do you make to this new F1 2022 game?
Well, it's the first game, I believe, under EA's control of the F1 series as well, because obviously EA was bought Codemasters, and obviously they're clearly trying to put their influence on the game as well. It's not F1 2022, it's F1 22 now. You can clearly see it's an EA sort of thing that they would do. But yes, the game looks certainly good. It looks certainly exciting, and certainly a lot of new features in it. It feels like a big F1 game coming up, Charlie, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I have to say as well, with Miami on the game, I do think that this game will really change the face of Formula One. The fact, obviously, EA are now owning it. And of course, as well, you've got to think that having Miami on the game, and obviously, who knows if, say, Sochi stays on the game, obviously, with the current invasion in Ukraine that Russia are doing, it's going to be interesting, Zach, to see, say, whether they bring like a Series 2 update out, whether they add new tracks on there. Like, you might be talking maybe something like Qatar or Istanbul could come back.
Yeah, absolutely, Charlie. There will, it might be downloadable content later on, but certainly, Charlie, as well, it will be interesting to see as well what content they can put on there in the future as well.
Yeah, maybe also as well, the big thing that I miss is the classics, and also could we see Formula 2 on the game? I know it was on the last game.
It looks like there's something about the being F2 licensed product, so expect to see F2 on that game as well.
Yeah, so it seems like what we're hearing, Formula 2 is going to be on the game as well. But moving on now from the sport briefing, Charlie's good news, should I say, sorry, to the papers, the final part of the show where we go over all things related with the newspapers. Well, because of the time now.
Tomorrow, Charlie, because it's like
10:20. It is now time
for
for
papers out for tomorrow. Hopefully.
Tomorrow's papers are actually out. Wow! So you know what? We will review tomorrow's papers instead of reviewing tonight's. Well, I'll go through some of today's if we get time. But well, here we go. These are all the issues that have come out. So the first one from The Guardian goes with a picture of Boris Johnson looking pretty annoyed with himself, saying Prime Minister blamed for Tories' election losses. Now, The Independent goes with probably my favourite headline of the week. pleased to investigate Starmer's COVID beers. Has Keir Starmer been caught red-handed? Well, me and Zach will talk about that in a minute as well. Now, Daily Express goes for bullish Boris back on track as Red Wall keeps faith. The Telegraph, or the Daily Telegraph, goes for victory for Sinn Féin strokes United Ireland fears. The Daily Mail goes for now it's slippery Starmer in crisis. Oh, the Daily Mail going for another pro-conservative headline. And the Mirror goes snubbed in that one. FT Weekend goes Johnson faces renewed threat as Tories hit hard in local elections. The I Weekend goes Tories put PM on notice as Starmer faces a police inquiry. Zach, what do you make to some of tomorrow's papers already released?
Let's go. Obviously, it's been dominated by elections, Charlie. So let's go through some of them as well. Some of the accurate ones and some of the ones that we can shove off and say that's not inaccurate as well. The Times Saturday goes with Tories punishing themselves. I think that's one of the key headlines, Charlie. No doubt about it. Tories were punishing themselves. Well, they've lost over 300 council seats, Charlie. It's been a dreadful result for themselves. We've lost a lot of them to Lib Dems, especially in Somerset, St Albans as well. Tunbridge Wells in our set as well. It may well stay on, Charlie. The thing is about Boris Johnson is that he survives the worst of things these days. So he'd probably like to stay on, knowing the party. There was some interesting voices as well. I think David Warburton as well. Some of those who were sort of, aware of the problems, Charlie. I think there's a sense that some Tory MPs will be aware of the problem and aware of the progress that they're losing in some of these seats, Charlie, potentially as well, that they need to keep an eye out on as well, Charlie. So Tories punish stuff. It's certainly right as well. The same goes to the Guardian as well. They go for PM blame for Tory election disasters. As well, there is some disastrous elections, especially in Scotland, Charlie, when Conservatives have gone from second place to third place, as well, Charlie, in Scotland as well. Terrible in Scotland, terrible in the Wales as well, and it's been blamed directly on the PM as well. Now the Independent goes for Tory MP Vaughan Johnson has lost public trust as well. There's obviously questions around. Now, I want to get onto this story, Charlie, and it dreads me to actually have to get onto this story. But it's obviously important that I have to get onto this story as well, considering the fact that I've been calling it out. It turns out I might not have to call it out. I have to get up to face the reality of this. Today, it was announced that Durham police were going to reinvestigate Keir Starmer over the what they call Beergate. As well, they had Partygate. We now have Beergate.
Cheers.
Well, potentially as well. Oh, you got your beer out? Have you got your beer in? Oh, I thought you were going to get your fake beer out then.
Just water, by the way, guys. It's not a beer.
Oh, thank God. As well. But yeah, it's a critical moment for Keir now. He's had some good results, if not spectacular. But nevertheless, Charlie, this has also been overshadowed a little bit because of the investigation reopening. Now, there's two possibilities that happen, Charlie, here. He could be found not guilty and doesn't have to pay another fixed penalty notice, and he will survive, Charlie. If that's the case, then that will probably happen. He'll be let off and he'll be vindicated. Then the Daily Mail won't have to publish their crap every day, potentially as well. If he is fined, however, it is likely that he may have to go. And that is a serious situation, Charlie. No doubt about it, because he's called for Boris Johnson to resign. He called for Rishi Sunak to resign as well. It's a very serious situation, Charlie, no doubt about it. And if he's called for them to resign, would the same standards be set for him, Charlie? It'll be very interesting to see as well. So that's on the Independent. The Daily Express goes for a very misleading front page. Boris back on track. No, they're not, because they've just lost 300 seats in the election, Charlie. I don't know why that's even a front page, to be fair. It's an extremely misleading headline and a crap one as well. It's totally misleading. They've obviously not found out the results of the southern area as well. They seem to miss out that. So yeah, there's been a bit of a misleading headline, Charlie, in terms of the Express. The Daily Telegraph obviously focused on the Sinn Féin victory as well, on the potential of the fact that the president of Sinn Féin, Mary Lou McDonald, had said that she would want a border poll potentially within 5 years, Charlie. Whether that realistically happens or not, I do not know. We'll see what the situation is at the time. As well, their Daily Mail also goes for now it's Slippery Starmer in crisis. As well, they've obviously done this courageous campaign of 10 days now where they've literally
Big 8-10.
spout it on for 10 days and bored the hell out of the nation as well with that one. It's incredible. Not even focused on any election results, just Beergate. The Mirror has not focused much on the election results. They've gone for the news today about some of the Platinum Jubilee stuff. They've gone for snubbed. And obviously this is the fact that the likes of the Queen has announced that only working members of the royal family will appear on the balcony for the Platinum Jubilee.
Mm.
So that means the likes of Andrew, Harry, and Meghan will not be able to appear on the balcony. However, the thing is, Charlie, is that Harry and Meghan will be at the Platinum Jubilee, just obviously not appearing at the wedding as well. And I think we're going to continue now with the FT weekend. They've got Johnson faces renewed threat from Tories hit hard elections as well. It's pretty much what we've seen. We'll see what the reaction is in the next few days. And the eye goes, Tory put PM notice to Starmer's face police inquiry with all the fallout from the election there as well. It certainly put more pressure on Boris Johnson, no doubt about it, Charlie, I think, as well.
Yeah, Zach, I also have to say with the headline of the Mirror, I just want to say Eamon Holmes on GB News took a dig at Prince Harry, saying that he would apparently throw him over the balcony. How interesting was that comment? The trouble is, if you do throw that, Charlie, you're going to have a big safety crew below Prince Harry if that's happened, because someone's going to need to catch him from the balcony if he does get thrown over. They won't allow it for security reasons, for health and safety either. No, probably not. But that's all your papers for tomorrow. Wow, we've rounded over so many of tomorrow's papers. We won't worry about today's because they've all come out for tomorrow. Now, it's time for the Great British Star and Red Devils of the week. Well, we have loads of them. Goodness me. And, well, Zach, I'm going to start with you this week.
I am going to start off, Charlie, with the Great British Star this week, Charlie. I'm going to give it to an interesting one, Charlie. I'm going to give it to a brand new councillor, Charlie, as well. I'm going to give it to Dylan Tippett, Charlie, who was elected today in Plymouth. Now, Dylan Tippett has become the first openly trans councillor in Plymouth, Charlie. This is historic news in Plymouth, no doubt about it. And Dylan Tippett is very young. He's got a big future ahead of him. He was a female, transgendered into a male. But the incredible results, he's been obviously well welcomed into the community. And he's won a seat previously held by the Tories, Charlie, in Plymouth. It's incredible bravery to be obviously trans and to be a politician and to be elected to the council, Charlie. It's a great result for Dylan Tippett today. And he's my British Star of the week, Charlie. Now,
here is Dylan Tippett for you guys. I'm just going to get him up now to see who, if you don't know, to all the listeners out there, that is Dylan Tippett here, who is...
It's loading up.
The first councillor. The
first openly trans councillor in Plymouth. It's incredible, Charlie. What a journey he's been doing. And he's been well supported by the local MP, Luke Pollard, there as well. It's been an absolute journey for him. What an absolute fantastic job. He's my British Star this week. Now, I'm struggling to give who the Red Devil this week, Charlie, because there's several contenders as well in this week. You could argue who I should give it to, really, but there could be several contenders you could give it to. The Conservative Party have a very bad week. 350 seats lost, expectation management not going very well there as well. I'm also potentially going to give it to the new mayor of Tower Hamlets, Charlie. Now, you wonder who the new mayor of Tower Hamlets is? It is the new mayor there, Charlie. Is Lutz from Ranman. He goes the Red Devil because although he's got re-elected after to the council after 5 years being kicked out. The reason why he got kicked out, Charlie, because he's been previously found of vote rigging in Tower Hamlets, and yet he's become the new mayor of Tower Hamlets again. No vote rigging this time, hopefully, but it's surprising, nevertheless, Charlie. He's one of the Red Devils this week as well, and potentially Keir Starmer as well for the Red Devil as well. Not because he had a terrible night in elections. He had a pretty good night, if not spectacular. But this reinvestigation trial is going to leave him in a lot of trouble. And potentially, if he gets fined again, he's got no choice but to resign, in my opinion. He set himself up for higher standards. And yeah, so I'm not going to give it to the Red Devil. I'm going to give him the Red Devil, not because the fact that, I think there's been some sort of a little smear campaign against him from the Mail and all that sort of thing, but because he is now under investigation, and we have to take this quite seriously now, Charlie, as well. So the British Star this week goes to Dylan Tippett for his incredible achievement, really, for who he is, and his background, everything's stunning. I'll give it the Conservative Party and Keir Starmer as well for the Red Devils this week as well, Charlie, and the Tower Hamlets mayor as well.
Yeah, some remnants of the US election coming in with Tower Hamlets, because obviously, if you know what happened in the US election, I won't say what it's to do with, but basically, it was that there was apparently some election. It was an election that
apparently
that Trump
no proven vote for though. Not much.
Yeah, very interesting indeed, guys. Well, let's go for my nominations now. I have plenty of nominations this week. Great British Star this week. Well, it's a tough one, you know what? I'm going to give it to all the people who have evacuated the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol because they have got out of a pretty terrifying situation. I have to give it to them as well. I think it's a huge thing. And yeah, that's what they're doing. Another nomination going out this week. And this one is an interesting nomination. I am going to give it to this person who I think has done a pretty good job when it comes to motorsports. Motorsport nomination this week goes to Chase Elliott for winning his first race of the season. I have to say he's had a tough start, but deserves a win in that respect. The Red Devils, though, my goodness, so many of them. One of them I'm going to give it to is Sergei Lavrov for his crazy comments on Adolf Hitler, let alone does he drink Jewish blood? Oh, my God. I mean, that is a threatening comment to the world, quite frankly. Another nomination goes to Vladimir Putin for a pretty crazy address where he says he would apparently react very fast, instantaneously fast, should I say, if the West intervenes. And my biggest Red Devil of the week goes to Keir Starmer for Beergate. Hashtag Starmer, the COVID party hypocrite from the Daily Mail. If that headline ever came up on the newspaper again, I'm pretty sure we'd all be cringed right now. And also as well, a bonus one, migrant crisis, the Rwanda plan gets another nomination. I mean, I've started to feel that the migrant crossings, Zach, have got even worse again.
I told you they weren't going to make a difference, Charlie. I mean, all this Rwanda stuff ain't going to make a difference. They're going to still do it anyway. That's sort of what I sort of said. And it is. They're doing it again, Charlie. Here we go again.
Yeah, trust me. I think the other day about 200 or 300 crossed in one day. Oh dear, not great if you ask me. Coming to keeping control of our borders. That's it for the Charlie Tolhurst show today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the show. Take care, everyone. and goodbye. Thank you for watching, and good.